Hello and welcome to the latest edition of View from the Bridge. My name is Joel Lammy. Delighted today to be joined by a true Notts legend in Paul Johnson, who is now working with some of the young players at Leicestershire. So we thought perfect timing to get him on, seeing as the two sides are playing each other starting on Friday. Paul, how are you this morning?
Yeah, very well, thank you. I think we've been spoilt recently with the weather. Seems to have taken a little bit of a turn today, but hopefully improve again by the end of the week when Leicester entertain Notts at Grace Road.
Absolutely. I mean, the forecast, I think, for Friday is looking good. Maybe slightly worse sort of over the weekend, but fingers crossed. I guess, first of all, what have you made of the sort of the opening rounds of the county championship for both sides? I mean, I suppose both would probably be fairly happy with results and performances so far.
Yeah, I think we had a little bit of a hiccup. I think first game of the season, they probably got bowled out a little bit cheaply. Have put that right since. I think the problem not necessarily was with the batting. I think at the start of the season we had 4 or 5 of our main frontline seamers injured and unavailable, which created a bit of a problem in taking 20 wickets. Sussex came hard and played well. It was probably a fair result. But since then we've played some pretty strong cricket and scored a lot of runs, and I think that both sides probably are looking at their batting lineups and are pretty confident to certainly get first innings runs on the board. So it will be interesting, A, to see what the wicket's like, and B, how well the top order batters can deal with the new ball.
Yeah, I saw Alfonso Thomas was a bit critical of the pitch against Glamorgan and said, he hopes to get a good balance between bat and ball with the home wickets. I suppose, you got Ajaz Patel there, international overseas spinner. Your batsmen are all in good runs, and must be quite a lot of confidence there at the minute that you've got a team that can compete in Division One. I mean, obviously last year you sort of romped to the title, didn't you, in Div 2?
Yeah, I think probably a month ago we were very confident at competing at this level. I think which is proved wrong. We were pretty upset for Peter Hanscom and the fact that he wasn't going to be with us this year. He, over the last few years, has been terrific, not only in how he's played, but how he's led the team and how he's been in and around the group. Our thoughts go out to him and his family. We just hope that everything is okay over in Australia for him. On the back of that, Jake Weatherall was recommended by Pete to the club and has come in and has done terrifically well. And he has a point to prove. He wants to be in and around that Australian top order setup, and he's been over here playing club cricket previously and has taken that by storm. And to be fair, so far he has proved to be probably more than capable of being up there in the top run scorers in the county championship.
Yeah, it's interesting. He retired hurt during the game, but they didn't want to bring in a sub because then he would have been unavailable to play against Notts. Well, that's a good point. What have you made of the subs rule? I mean, obviously not something that would ever be considered in your day. Do you think it's a good idea, even if it's not maybe worked as intended?
Well, it certainly hasn't worked as intended. There are too many loopholes. I think that you name a team, and what we can't do is leave loopholes for professional clubs to take advantage of. And you pick a balanced team at the start of it, and I think unless there is something which I don't know how you police and monitor is considered worthy of a replacement. Certainly, I don't think a bruised finger or something that is relatively minor in terms of what has previously gone warrants a substitution. It certainly needs tightening up. I don't have a problem for it. if it's done in the right way. But it's horribly off it at the minute, I think, and just leaves too many loopholes for people to try and take advantage of.
No, I think most people, even people like myself, who think it's a good idea, don't think it's working as intended at the minute. Obviously, you've mentioned Jake Weatherwood. I should point out to people listening, we're not a podcast, and we assume people obviously know people such as yourself. But for those who are listening and don't know much about Jono's career, you were the fourth highest run scorer in not history, highest run scorer in limited overs league matches. You played more than 700 times for the club. You were a coach there for many years afterwards. You commentated on, for BBC Radio Nottingham. So no one probably is, steeped in Nottinghamshire history as much as you in many ways. So you're probably as well qualified to comment on, batsmen is anyone we get on this podcast. So, and Leicestershire as a whole, they've racked up the runs in the last two games. How do you, I guess, would you kind of see that as something people, not fans, might go, oh, newly promoted side, we should be beating them, but not want to be underestimated. I mean, that batting line, it looks like it's in good nick, and got some talented players in there. I mean, I'm a big fan of Rishi Patel.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you can only play who's in front of you, and as a professional batsman, you need to play up well. And what I mean by that is that when the challenge is there, that you take the opportunity to show. And for as I'm sure the Notts fans will say, little Leicester up the road, it's a perfect opportunity to showcase the talent that we've got. And Rishi Patel has started the season very well. I feel a little bit sorry, actually. He played in every game last year, who you'll know well. Sol Buddinger hasn't featured this year because of the change of dynamic. I think if Peter Hanscom had have come, then Sol would have probably maintained his opening berth. But I suppose in some ways that shows that the strength is there. Ian Holland has batted well at 3. And players Lewis Hill and guys, even Eskenazi has got 1 or 2 hundreds, 50s plus, and even Coxey down at batting at 7 has shown that he's more than capable with his 160 that he got earlier in the season as well. So all the way down to sort of 7 and 8 with Rahan in there doing his stuff as well. It is a talented outfit, and I suppose with us going up now, those guys need to stick their hands in the air and show us what we're capable of. And so far with the bat, apart from probably the hiccup early season, which can happen first game of the season in just terms of getting used to the competitive bat versus ball scenario and getting outside, we've done very, very well indeed.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the averages, I know it's early, and 3 players average over 100 this season in Tattersall, Cox, Weatherall, Patel 64, Eskenazi 51. Obviously, the bowling has probably suffered a bit. Maybe, having played on 2 sounds very flat wickets in the last 2 games. Ian Holland and Ben Green both averaging about 30 with 10 wickets apiece. Interested though, we're looking at from, I know you're obviously batting is your sort of forte, but you've worked a lot with you work with the sort of the academy players and seen them come through. So someone like Josh Hull, I seen a clip the other day of him, bowling a great delivery. I think it was Asa Trabi bowled through the gate, swinging in. I mean, there's some raw talent there, and I know we spoke about Alex Green as well as another up and coming seamer to be looking out for. Leicestershire do have some young players, don't they, that are coming through and quite exciting.
Yeah, certainly Alex Green, 6'6", whatever he is, and Hully, who's up there 6'6", 6'7", offer really good pace with the ability to swing the ball. Especially Hully's developed that really well with Fons and with Daffy around to work with him as well. So he's got good experience around him. His early introduction into the England setup obviously gave him that confidence to know that he can play at that level. I'd say with both of those, or they sort of have to be encouraged to let them know that they are as good as what we think they are. I think with quite a lot of players these days, they probably overthink things. Back in the day, we used to say there's nothing more dangerous than a thick, fast bowler, because they don't worry, they just bowl the ball. And I think these days they probably overthink a little bit. But that with those two, we've got another lad who's coming through quite nicely. Again, he's 6'4" in Sam Wood. So the sort of little production line that we've got coming through, along with some really good signings that the coaches have made up the top, have given us a real chance of competing and hopefully holding our own this season.
Do you think, what is the aspiration? Is it staying up, or is it potentially pushing for a top 4, top 2 spot? I mean, I know it's you probably can't just say, oh well, just survival is everything, but I mean, realistically, do you think Leicestershire will just be happy to not be in the bottom to the end of the season?
I think realistically, what we want to do, and it sounds a little bit Premier League footballish, is take each game as it comes. Hopefully, keep a fit and healthy squad, and in each game be in the game coming into day 3 and 4. I think that any side, regardless, we put Surrey under pressure this year, and you'd have probably said that they were contenders definitely this year with all the experience that they've got. And you just want to be in games, and you just want to be competitive, and if you're doing that and getting in amongst them, then pressure is a huge thing going into day 3 and 4. And if we can turn a few of those around, then whether we'll be up there or whether we'll influence who does eventually win it, I think is all you can ask of a professional outfit. And we feel that we've got a little bit of strength in depth now. We've got a little bit more quality in the squad, and hopefully they'll showcase their skills and we'll do well.
No, absolutely. And what have you made of Notts? Probably not quite hit top gear so far. 1 win, couple of draws.
Well, if you can keep the loss column as empty as possible for as long as possible, that's key. High scoring draws. They certainly have options down and through their bowling department within their seamers. Again, it all depends when England squads are named, who they miss, how they rotate. I think that their top order looks relatively solid down and through. I thought this last game, the tail was probably a little bit early, but you had players such as the overseas wicketkeeper, who is more than capable, as most wicketkeepers do, annoyingly, is help them out batting at sort of 6, 7, 8 when they're in a little bit of trouble, and he's certainly capable of that. So just when you think that you might have broken the back of a batting order, you've got someone such as him who can come in and do what he did this week, and that's you shouldn't rely on it, but it's always that safety blanket that you love down through that lower middle order.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not too bad deep. I mean, incredible to think that actually, able to drop Lyndon James a couple of games ago, and still have Fergus O'Neill then coming in at 8 instead. I mean, it's
it's pretty strong, isn't it?
No, absolutely great amount of talent, and obviously assistant coach Leicestershire at the minute, James Taylor. How's he doing there? A man Notts fans know and remember very well.
Yeah, Titch does his stuff. He is in and around him. He's got enormous experience. It looks like he and Fons have got them prepared very well from. I always worry how a team first go out at the start of the season, because you can do as much preparation indoors as you want, and hopefully that technical work drops in to when it comes outside, which is pretty much a totally different game when you go outside to how you're prepping indoors. It looks like both teams have done that well, to be fair. They've both hit the ground running pretty much with the bat, and we've seen a lot of big scores, not only with Notts and Leicester, but pretty much throughout the country. There haven't been many counties that have been shovelled out quickly. So it looks predominantly as though Batter's been ruling ball, and certainly at Leicester, James Taylor is key to making sure that that area of our setup works well. And so far, it looks like they're all on the same hymn sheet for sure.
Now, obviously, you're a man who was known in his day for quick scoring.
Not anymore. I think if my career now was dropped in as it is, I'd be pedestrian. But I think back in the day, I could have been labelled with that. But looking at how they play the game these days, yeah, I'd have had to up my game for sure.
Well, you had 167 not out of 106 balls against Kent. Now, I know that's not quite Surivanshi fast, because I know 30 balls games a bit pedestrian for him, but that's still a fantastic effort. What I was going to sort of ask was, you've imagine you've seen England play, whether live or on highlights, and you've seen the championship. Interested to get your thoughts on maybe how how the England setup is in terms of those who've been selected, and maybe who you think has the game to do well at international level. Because I think that's the big talking point this year, and who opens, who keeps. Those are some of the big discussion points.
Yeah, I'll start with the wicketkeeper if that's all right. And I was very lucky to have two of, in my opinion, the best wicket keepers that we've seen for a long time in Bruce French and Chris Reed, and I felt that both of those two are in a pretty similar position to what we see folks in at the minute. That both French and Reed, in my opinion, were the best glovemen in the country for large periods of their career, and their batting probably, I wouldn't say let them down. You can only bat as well as you can, but certainly with both of them, as I've just said about Varian, that I think that batting at sort of 6, 7, 8, we certainly saw Chris Reed get knocked out of trouble countless times, and Frenchie was pretty similar. If Frenchie got pinned on the head or on the arm or wherever it was, he used to get stuck in and score good runs as well. He probably needed stirring up. But in terms of glove man, for me, the best glove man in the country is Folkes. I can't see that there should be a problem with Folkes batting at 7, 8 and just playing the way he does, which is probably non-Bazball like. I don't necessarily like the phrase Bazball, but positively, if England are in trouble and Folkes was coming out when England was sort of 6 down in a bit of trouble, you could probably put your hat on him more than anybody else to actually get stuck in and get them out that trouble, rather than trying to biff their way out of it. So I certainly would have him in and around, and that would probably leave Smith purely in there as a batter. I think that would probably help him. There's problems probably at the top. It was good to see Duckett get runs the other day. He certainly needed those just to probably take a little bit of pressure off him at England level. Also good for Notts. You've got Hamid who's sort of thrown his hat in the ring, as Sibley. You've got Lawrence who's in the runs as well, who offers a little bit of an option. There's Emilio Gay who seems to be raising his head, as does Lees and McKinney. There's plenty of options. It all depends, obviously, on the England selection, how much they've seen, how much they trust, and who they bank on being probably not a 1 and 2 test wonder, but someone who has got a career over the next year or 3 at that level. So it will be very interesting to see how and where they go with it. But there are options out there, definitely.
Yeah, when you watch England play, do you despair at times, or do you just? Obviously,
Didn't win some.
Yeah, I think we all did. But you work with younger players as well, and is that sort of mindset of we have to play aggressive, we have to always be on the positive front foot all the time? Do you kind of see that, that sort of seeping into, or do you still think there is a value on being able to play longer innings? I mean, Dom Sibley hit a 280 ball 100 this week. I'm not saying go to that extreme, but do you just think young
Well,
players these
why
days.
not? You know, it's 100. Obviously, he can bat the way he bats if he's got players doing what they do around him. And I talk to a lot of coaches around the country, and I think that we're all in agreement with what happened this winter made our job somewhat harder. And what I mean by that, if you've got your top players who are happy hooking and backing away and looking to ramp and then lads within your pathway come in and say, no, I've seen my role models do this and I want to do it as well. And I think across the board, I try, and a lot of my coaching colleagues around the country agree that you need to set someone up with a very good solid base and foundation, and then bolt on the other fancier bits in and around that. If you try and do it the other way, you might be a flash in the pan, but you're not necessarily going to have longevity within a career that will repeat over and over again. So no, I'm a big believer in getting the basic fundamentals right. I'd probably say if you want to be a Joe Root, a Kane Williamson, a Virat Kohli, you're going to have to do the boring things well. And at the minute, I don't think there's many lads around who are looking at cricket wanting to be boring. They want to be able to play the ramps and the flashy shots and live off the back of hits on social media rather than scoring 280 ball hundreds, and that 100 is down in history. No one can take it away, but one flashy ramp for 4 or 6 will be forgotten about within a few days, let alone go down in the annals of history, shall we say.
Yeah. Well, one player who could combine sort of both skills was Samit Patel, who recently announced his retirement from domestic cricket at the very least last week. Now, you have seen Samit as a very young man. I think he was just coming through just as sort of towards the end of your time there, but obviously you coached him as well. What would you say about him as a player and as a bloke?
Samit came through the system. He goes down as someone certainly in white ball cricket has gone down with legendary status. Really, his longevity. He basically bats with knowledge and understanding. Certainly, as his career has unfolded, his spin bowling has got more wily and more knowledge and understanding about it. He he does things at times that you think he's not capable of doing. He's always backed himself. He's never lacked confidence. And recently, he can probably consider himself a little bit hard done to, that probably hasn't been in and around that England 2020 setup and contributed to that. But his stats say everything. He's had longevity. He's done everything that the club have wanted him to do over the years, and really, he can step back now and be very proud of his career.
Yeah, absolutely, fantastic career. And for those listening, we have a Substack we post most days. Today's piece was Samit's top 10 performances, 9 for Notts, one for England. So some incredible performances on there. So do check it out. It's free to subscribe. So yeah, View from the Bridge on Substack, you'll find us there. Paul, I think we've pretty much covered most topics there. I guess you're just looking forward then to this week, and what should be, it's been a very entertaining start to the championship. Lots of great talking points. I bet you're just enjoying having, do you get as excited watching it as you ever have done when you were playing as well?
I really enjoy this time of year. We've done such a lot of horrible, dark, dank evenings indoors through the winter, and then all of a sudden, as early as it is now, we didn't used to start until about this time. I think our first or second game was in and around sort of the late mid-20s of April. Now it's probably a month earlier, but I think we've been lucky with the weather over the last year or two. That could, backfire at any time. But looks like the seasons have come earlier, which has helped. And certainly that first game, or you see them out in pre-season, you think, yeah, we're nearly here now. Sun's out, bat on ball, that beautiful sound and the smell of the cut grass, and yeah, it's still in there at 61 now. I still get excited about those early games and seeing how the season looks like it's going to unfold. So yeah, I hope the weather stays good this week. I hope we get a good contest between bat and ball, and it'll be very interesting to see how the game unfolds.
Absolutely. Well, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much again for your time. You're always very generous. You come on most seasons to have a chat with us. So well, fingers crossed. Obviously, from our perspective, from a not to get on, and we'll be back with more episodes coming up very soon. Thank you to everyone who's listened.